Before we dive in today's conversation, I want to take a moment to talk about Denise Huskins, Denise Quinn these days, not just as the woman you've seen perhaps on the Netflix show, and a lot of us have watched that, but as the mother, as the woman, as the daughter, as the sibling, as a doctor of physical therapy, a victim advocate, and a public speaker. She is someone who, for me, has really shown how it is to rebuild a life with intention and purpose after a horrible kidnapping and situation in June of 2015. She's been married now for nearly 8 years to Aaron Quinn, her boyfriend at the time of the kidnapping. And together they have two beautiful daughters. Thankfully, a lot has changed for her over the last 10 years. And for that, I'm so happy. But for a brief and traumatic time, the world knew her by a name she never asked for, the Gone Girl. It's a label that never fit, and certainly one Denise never deserved. So if you've watched the movie, the Netflix movie called American Nightmare, or you've read the book, which I did both, Victim F, you will understand very, very quickly a little bit about what Denise and Aaron went through. She was taken in the middle of the night from her boyfriend Aaron's apartment in Vallejo, California. Intruders broke in wearing wetsuits, drugged them, very bizarre sort of scenario, and kidnapped and raped Denise. After two days, Denise was released near her mom's house in Vallejo, California. And I'm sorry, in Huntington Beach. And while police, flat out did not believe her, and they said that, pretty much right to her. It was a woman detective who discovered a blonde hair, an unrelated crime scene that helped bring the truth out. But the damage was done, and you can watch this story on Netflix, and as millions of you have, and you can read that book. And I got to tell you, it made me very angry. She did a really interesting thing because she put it into three sorts of segments: victim. It was victim, suspect, and survivor. And in that respect, it was very good for me to kind of understand what Denise sort of went through. I mean, I can't fathom it. It's just a small percentage of even having the empathy to understand what she went through. But it was very well done. And I think it brought out a lot of things for me. Like I said, extreme anger, but it also showed, what Denise and Aaron endured. And as I walked away thinking, holy bananas, this is really messed up. Now, Denise didn't just survive that nightmare. If you've ever listened to her interviews, and I have, she's still living with this every day, and it's like echoes every day. But she's done something really remarkable. She's taken control of her story. She's changed her narrative. And that's what we're here to talk about today, because that is where the power lies for each and every one of us. And that's why I wanted to have Denise as my first guest on this new show that is now called This Is How She Did It. And Denise, you are the perfect guest to really kind of kick this whole sort of mantra position off. You're living proof of what it means not just to survive, but to reclaim happiness, to create your next steps, to fight for meaning, and to help advocate and change some scenarios for other women who probably don't have the power or the platform to do so. So for that, we commend you. And I want to do, really dig in with Denise, which we are going to do. But before we do that, I just want to slowly pivot for a second and do a quick shout out to one of the latest people who have reviewed my podcast. If you like the show, and you've let me know on Apple or Spotify, I will give you a shout out. And this one is from someone named Howjean, who said about the show, "I love the content. I can't say enough about this podcast. It is clear the effort that goes into choosing meaningful content that helps enrich the lives of many." And I highly recommend it. Thank you very much, Howjean. And I can tell you today's guest is for sure helping me enrich the lives of others. Denise Huskins is here, Denise Quinn. And I just want to say, I am proud of you as a mother. I'm proud of you as a woman. I'm sure you get that a lot, but you know what? We're really happy to see where you've come, and just want to dive in and thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you. That was all very nice. And
Mhm.
you already got me emotional, so
No, and I don't
we're
mean
off to a
to.
good start.
I
It's
don't
good.
mean to. I don't mean
No,
to. I
it's good.
mean,
It's good.
yeah,
Thank you.
I know
It
that. I know
really
that.
means
And
a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I've been, like others, followed your journey, and it's nothing more as from a woman and a mom, someone that has all of these relationships. We just want the best and good things for you. So,
Mm.
I'm happy you're beautiful. I'm sure, listen, we never are going to know exactly what's going on, but I am really happy that you have built this life for yourself. I mean, 10 years ago, in June, this nightmare happened. And, I think what I just want to say and start out, just give us an update. Where are you? What's going on? What brings you joy? And what does your world look like now?
Yeah, well, I mean, I actually just this past weekend turned 40.
Ah, that's still
Which
young. You
is
think it's old,
it's
it's
an
not.
exciting milestone. But it's
Yeah.
also, as a woman, you're like, "Oh, 40, here we are." Um, but, having 2 young children, seeing them, um, experience the world again, it takes you back to your childhood in a way. And you think back to, like, what you envision for your future, and there's thankfully so much that's happening in my life currently that I would have hoped and dreamed for. I'm married to a man who is, I mean, an incredible partner in every sense of the term, whether it's us as a partner in a relationship, as parents, professionally, as we speak to people and try to navigate this world of dealing with our trauma, and how it still interweaves and impacts our lives. I'm still practicing physical therapy. And there's also so many things that are happening in my life that I never would have dreamt of or expected. I never considered myself a public speaker, but now we're speaking at conferences of up to 1,000 people, law enforcement, and like reflecting back to even 10 years ago, I was 29 when this all happened in captivity, thinking this is the end of my life,
Yeah.
and coming to terms and peace with that and mourning a future that I never thought I was gonna have, and accepting, okay, I might not have children, I might not get married, I might not do all these things, but, at least, like, reflecting in my life at that point in time and being proud of the life that I had up to that point. And then I got a beautiful gift of continuing to live. And so, yeah, just thinking back to like my 30th, that milestone and how huge that was, just surviving. And now, again, like there's so many uncertainties at the time. We had to rebuild our lives completely, our reputations, our names completely. So it was impossible to really see a clear future. So to again, just to be here right now, with everything is a gift. Yeah.
Yeah, you just put that into so much perspective. Just thinking what you must have been thinking 11 years ago at a time, a very, short point in time, but probably the most traumatic, poignant point of time that really makes you value things. And to me, what a beautiful scenario 10 years later that you are having some silver linings of things that have opened because you have taken that mantra, which I'm going to share later, and chosen some courage over something else. And I think is going to really resonate with a lot of the women who I speak with who, have not gone through anything similar to what you've gone through, but they have their own demons. They have their own, sort of insecurities and problems and adversities they face, and you are proof that you can push through to another side to still go after those dreams that you want, which brings me to this, release of the Netflix documentary. I didn't know your story obviously until this came out. I mean, that thing went on like wildfire. I mean, I remember my husband's like, you have to watch this, and my husband's not usually one that kind of would he likes things that had three eyes on it, sci-fi stuff, and I'm like, what? It just hit so many people. You are the girl next door. You are someone we went to school with. You are my daughter. You are so many different, people that we all know. And it's such an amazingly crazy story. What did that do? What impact did that documentary have both on your life, I guess, personally, but also from a healing perspective?
Yeah, it it's interesting because something that big that's viewed by, well, I think it was like 70 million people all over the world. Um, we had people reach out, really from every little edge of the earth connecting to some part of what we went through, and that was really why we wanted to take the narrative back, take control back, and share what we went through, because there's so many themes that I think, yes, not everyone's gonna go through something as extreme as a kidnapping or the false accusations of law enforcement, but I think a lot of people can understand what it's like to be gaslit, to not be believed, to be doubted, to have people think of you differently than who you really are, and having to battle that. We all as humans are going to experience some kind of traumatic event in our life multiple times in our lives. And what's really beautiful about being human is our capacity for resilience and our capacity to evolve and grow and learn. And I mean, really, I think all of us can handle things more than
Than you
we
think.
than you
Ever,
think.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm.
how many people have said like, I could never have done what you've done? Like, you just don't know. Hopefully, you don't never find out. But the biggest thing that changed since the series came out was people in law enforcement reaching out to us and asking for us to speak to them and to really hear um, from us and value what we have to say as victims, because we didn't get that. The irony too is next or this week in a couple of days, we're getting a California District Attorneys Association's Victim Witness of the Year award, which is amazing. It's a great honor. But like 10 years ago, we were seen as bad
Yeah.
victims, unbelievable. How you acted, what you did, we just couldn't believe you. So to see how things have changed, to see how true crime has changed, we wanted to make sure if we did a show, it was very victim centered. 10 years ago, it was very much about the perpetrator and that whole sensationalization, or highlighting law enforcement and the detective who did the things. Um, and we had that. We had Misty, but she came later.
Right.
And at the beginning, we had to fight to be our own heroes.
Y
Um, yeah.
and that's so isolating, and that brings me to, again, your book, the series. To me, there was 1 or 2 things that really hit me between the eyes, which made me realize as women, because we sometimes, I think, our worst attribute or emotion is shame, right? It's just the most useless emotion as well. You said something to the fact that, of course, the event itself was traumatic, but the disbelief, the trauma of that disbelief of a community and of everyone around you was, if not more or as bad as the crime itself. What was that like?
Yeah, my husband and I have often said, like, you can kind of wrap your head around something like a kidnapping. There's people out there who are motivated to cause harm and they will find a way. And so, and you kind of have that belief of like good people, bad people, and there's some clarity with that. But like we grew up with the belief if something bad happens, you call 911 for help and
Right,
you get
right,
help. And
right.
in our case, Aaron calling the police made everything that much worse. And that kind of world view that was shattered was really crushing. And you think, okay, if something bad happens, you turn to your community for help. And we were like attacked, threatened, and abandoned. And
Mm,
it was hard to find. I mean, you feel like you're in a twilight zone. Everything is uprooted, everything's chaotic, everything's unclear. And you're trying to ground yourself in whatever way you possibly can. And so that's where, turning within yourself and believing in yourself is so critical. Even though you, of course, are going to be met with that self shame and doubt. I think a big part of that is human nature. Both men and women do it, but
yeah,
it's because we cannot control things outside of ourselves. The only thing we can control is ourselves. So then if some of that self-shame is going, well, maybe if I did this better, maybe if I acted this way, maybe if I said this thing, then this thing wouldn't have happened to me. Or in a way to protect yourself and keep yourself safe, okay, if I do things differently in the future, then I won't be attacked again. But in time, um, dealing with the people we were dealing with and their belief systems and their rigidity, and their bias, you really learn that I can't control them. I'm not going to change their minds. But what I can control still is myself, and stay true to myself and my values, and let that continue to lead you.
Yeah, and I think it's obviously you were younger. You were 29. You still didn't have some of the life experience of 30, someone, 20, 30, 40 more years older than you would have had to be able to have some of this. So I think the perspective was probably really difficult to adjust to. And I think what you're saying now is spot on. It's taken me so many years to learn that. But one of the things you did said, which segues nicely into this is that you had this mantra, and the mantra that really got you through was believe in yourself. How did that mantra come about? Where did you get that? And how important was that through your captivity and through the aftermath of a community and, police force not believing you? How did that kind of weigh in helping sustain you through?
Yeah, yeah, I think the thing ironically that really solidified that for me, and I'm like, I know who I am and I need to trust myself, is I finally watched almost a year later the movie Gone Girl. I hadn't read the book. I hadn't watched the movie, which everyone assumed I was replicating something I never even saw or read before. Um but I watched it, and in watching it, even though it was infuriating, it gave me a sense of peace, because like, I am nothing like this woman, this character. And what happened, there really aren't many similarities at all. I mean, one of the things that was used against me often was, that I was so calm and non emotional. So therefore, they wouldn't be able to believe me. But the character in that movie, dramatically with blood all over her, like faints in Ben Affleck's arms in front of media. And so there's a lot of extremes. She inflicted injuries to herself, and I was told I couldn't be believed because I didn't have obvious physical injuries. So there was so many conflicting things that I'm like, oh, it gave me a sense of peace and going like, it didn't matter what I did, what I said, how I behaved. None of it matched anyways. So they were just trying to find anything to match what their belief of was of me. Um it allowed me some freedom from it all, and I could disconnect from that narrative, and ask myself, no, what really matters to me? What really are my values? And build off of that.
Yeah, and I think that's important, especially when a lot of shame comes into play. Like you were saying, that monkey mind goes on. What could I have done differently? Because this is so insane. Is there somehow? No, there's not a darn thing you could have done. And letting that go and just knowing and believing in yourself. And probably you had to have something in the back of your head that eventually they're going to figure this out. But I can't even imagine the frustration, which brings me to this other point. I have known, during like people show their true colors during worst times. So, like, for instance, at a funeral, I can remember, like, my dad passing away, certain people showing up. I didn't expect others that I thought would step up, didn't. You have something that I would imagine you have a circle that you would have called on to feed you through this. Who in your circle, and you don't have to be specific, you can be as specific as not, but maybe just in general, what did you learn about those in your circle, in your tribe that you thought were in your tribe, and maybe those others that came into your tribe that you never thought would be there for you? What did you learn about human nature?
Oh yeah. Well, thankfully, and I think, I mean, Aaron and I say this a lot. One of the biggest things that got us through everything was our support system. So although the community itself isolated and shamed us, within our close circle, our family and our
Yep.
lifelong friends, they undeniably believed in us, were there for us, they showed up for us. So we did have a support system in that regard.
Yeah.
Our world shrank, even though it
Yeah.
exploded, but it also, within our daily life, it really, really, we narrowed it down. There were people that I had met in my life, and I had told myself, like, if anyone knows me, they know that I wouldn't do this. But then I'd see some posts on Facebook going, "What? Why?" Reposting negative
Mhm.
headlines. Um, some of those people have since apologized deeply, and I forgive them. And I had one friend who met with me and sat and listened to me, and I could just tell this like shock in her face. And eventually she was like, "I have to be honest, I thought that you did make it up. I thought I believed what the media was saying and law enforcement was saying, and I I was here to support you as a friend no matter what." Like, she was asking me, "Are you gonna change your name?" And I'm like, why would I change my name? Why would I change who I am because of other people's lies?" But then I realized because that's what she believed.
You
And
did.
same thing though, I could understand where she was coming from. I appreciated that she still wanted to support me through it. So it was a positive and negative at the same time. It was confusing to me. And then it just made me realize really the power of um,
Yeah,
sensational
social media,
storytelling.
press yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, didn't someone ask you once if you were gonna change your hair color or something crazy? I've read that in the book, or I listened to
Well,
that in the book.
yeah, and it's, like, innocent enough. It was a genuine, "Oh, you're still blonde," and I was trying to isolate myself from comments and media pretty early. My family was like, "Don't read anything," and I listened. But those little things were like, "Wow, this is how bad this is." Like, they people close to me, based on what's being put out there, genuinely think I should change my name and how I look to protect myself and hide.
Well, I loved your dad. There were some things that you talk I mean, your whole family seems fabulous, but people don't realize the financial burden. They have no idea when you start having to fight, for your life in that respect, the financial requirements are beyond any of us could really kind of fathom. So, wonderful that you had a fabulous support system, and I would have done the same thing for my daughter. Yeah, and it's not even a question, you
Yeah, and
know?
it's one of the, like, the lucky parts of what we went through, because most people see what happened, they go, "Wow, that was very unlucky and very, awful," and it was, but we had a lot of privileges that assisted us, and one of the both of our families, they supported us, they believed in us, and they had the resources and ability to find attorneys that would fight for us. And thankfully we found attorneys who did genuinely believe in us and were willing to fight and put their reputations on the line to go out publicly and say, "No, we believe them, and we're going to fight for it." And then the other lucky part is, which is awful to say, and it's not lucky, it's tragic, is that then another family was attacked and was, at least the perpetrator was linked to our case because of the detective Misty Cruz who found the blonde hair,
Yeah.
and her victims didn't have blonde hair, and that case could have easily just been closed and done. And Misty said, "No, like, there's something else here, and I'm gonna keep searching and looking for it." And there's
Mhm.
others in law enforcement who would not have done the same thing. So it was, things came together. I mean, Aaron and I believed, okay, maybe in 10, 20, 30 years. I mean, the sad part was based on how law enforcement was handling things. We knew that the only way it would come out is if he attacked more people, and
Yeah.
they let
Yeah.
that happen. So that's,
Yeah.
again, it's tragic.
Yeah, but you're making some headway and you're making change, and that's what it's all about. And I think we all, at least from what I'm seeing as well, that you're making an impact. I mean, obviously, yes, this award is actually acknowledgement of that. So,
Yeah.
credit for that, and maybe take some. You have to take that in and say, you know what, this is something that I'm going to take with me to make that difference. And choosing what you call, and I'm going to segue to this right now: courage over comfort. I
Mhm.
think that's another great mantra. Believe in yourself, choose courage over comfort. And that's something for all of us in all of our lives. But how did that one come to play? Because you could have easily, after this, just hidden, leave me alone. I don't want to, just let me go. You did not. You choose to push in every way to help others. And so talk to me about that kind of swivel on the seesaw.
Yeah, well, that came from Brené Brown, which
Love
love her, she's
her.
amazing,
Yes,
yeah.
she is.
I read her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, right before the kidnapping. I was going to therapy, trying to still process and manage my childhood trauma, and get more clear about who I was as a person and what I had to offer in this world. Though that
Mm.
was a wonderful book. And then of course she like blew up and she wrote a new book, and that was something that she expressed, choosing courage over comfort. You can have courage or you can have comfort, but you can't have both, not at the same time. And we were at that time actively involved in the criminal case against Matthew Mueller. We were actively suing the city of Vallejo and its police department, and getting a lot of victim blaming stuff in their response to the civil lawsuit. Still getting disbelief from people.
After
We were
this, you got disbelief after all of this?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, and that's the power of people's belief systems, right? So if they felt
You're right.
so passionately that they could write me hateful messages online and seek me out and to just go, oops, sorry, like I did something. I mean, some people did. I actually wrote to at least maybe 60 to 100 people who had sent me shame messages on
Yeah.
Facebook like years later. And I said, hi, do you remember sending this? Um, a lot of no responses. I was surprised at how many responses were, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry, and now I see things in a different way. And now I know not to believe everything and just react off of it," which I think is a major lesson. That rush to judgment, like you can believe and feel a certain way, but what do you do with that? And do you act out of hate and anger, or can you come from a place of curiosity and hopefully love and support?
Absolutely.
Um,
Curiosity. I
yeah.
totally agree, and I think that's a mindset shift, and so I think that is so darn important. I do, one of the things I do, courage over comfort is definitely a great mantra, and I think that's something everyone should take with them. And I think that you have courage a lot of times when you are not comfortable. And one of those times is I listened to Call Her Daddy podcast. And you know what hit me is every time you sighed, I could feel, because I'm like this empathetic, crazy person, I could feel your pain. And so, what do those sighs represent for you now? Because we're having a conversation, I don't hear it as much. And so I'm thinking along the way that perhaps not that it's lessening, but like you said, your mind is shifting or you're able to funnel it in a different way.
Yeah, and Call Her Daddy specifically, that was maybe a month and a half, 2 months after the series came out, and I think I
Yes.
even say it in her show, how the public exposure was so intertwined with life and death and the threat of my life being taken away, and then the representation of actually my life as I knew it.
Mm.
Will I be a physical therapist? Can I even use my name? All of those things. It is still so visceral and so inside my body, that was like physically ill. I
Yeah.
laugh now.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
I truly was, and it's interesting
it
that
was
you
a lot,
noted that
right? Was it
because
just a
yeah,
lot?
when I rewatched and re-listened to that specific interview too, I noticed that and I felt almost shame and embarrassment of, oh gosh, I sigh a lot. I mean, it's kind of
No,
the
no,
the discomfort
no.
of putting yourself out publicly. Uh, but
You were
I think,
vulnerable. You were
yeah,
vulnerable, and I appreciate that. Brene Brown would like that too. Right?
yeah,
The
I think
power of
part of the
vulnerability.
sigh, like thinking about it was, yeah, that physical
Ugh,
exhaustion of feeling defeated and beaten down, but at the same time refusing to be defeated
yeah,
and beaten down.
yeah.
And so, I mean, it was really, it's one of my strongest symptoms of PTSD is exhaustion. And I've been trying to navigate that a lot, but it makes sense. when your body's physically going through so much and constantly in this fight or flight. I mean, I have two beautiful daughters. Soon as you have the baby, it's like all of the fears become heightened, all of the possible scenarios. How many times I've worried, is she still in the crib? Is
Yeah,
someone
I
going to,
know.
all of those things. But that's also like a natural thing as a parent, right? Your
It
amygdala
is.
grows and you go, okay, like I need to foresee any potential threat. But then now that I have this very clear threat in my life, it's hard not to have it be all consuming. So, I mean, one thing I did was I went back to therapy last year after the series came out, realizing that I still had a lot to work through. And I tried EMDR therapy. I found a really amazing therapist who does that. And we also did ketamine assisted EMDR therapy. It was really helpful because I had so many barriers that I created that, like, for me to even try to go to a traumatic memory, it was just not happening. So that was really powerful and helping me kind of stabilize my nervous system, I
No,
guess.
you know, it's interesting. I've heard a lot about the EMDR. So you're just again because people, I'm all about providing people options and ways to just be able to live their best life, right? To live. Was that something you would say has been that was definitely a helpful thing?
It was absolutely helpful. And I don't know if it would have been helpful 10 years ago. I don't
Mm,
know if I was in a place for that yet. So, because I've had people say for a long time, like, this is something that you should try to do. And I just didn't have a therapist and all the things. But I think all the different therapy that I've had in the past has helped set me up for that type of deep reprocessing and work. And I remember talking to someone, a therapist, on a podcast um, about this idea, but I think there's times where you need to heal to truly begin to heal. Like I see it with my patients for physical therapy. Sometimes it just like you need some people's nervous systems are so like over like just going, and I can't do the manual work to help maybe with soft tissue healing or to relax tone, because even if I just put my hand on them, their body jumps. And so part of the healing is just being able to tolerate a touch and talking through where some of this maybe layered chronic pain might be interwoven from past and emotional pain, or and so, um, not everything is a one fit for all at every phase of your healing.
yeah, and I want to and that's great. Thank you for sharing that. And I acknowledge you for sharing that as well. I mean, that's more personal stuff that you have been very gracious in sharing. And I want to just go back to the Call Her Daddy interview because I have to tell you, and I love podcast. That podcast to me was probably one of the most raw, real, um, and totally appreciated that you took the audience really through an awful lot. So I don't ever want you to walk away feeling shame. That was true. It was real. I mean, it was as real as you can get. And I took that away because I did, as a listener, felt that what you were saying, that it was a struggle of control, but at the same time, oh, it was exhausting. So please, it was a very, very well done. But of course, I could sense the pain. And so that's why I was saying that.
Yeah, thank
Um, one thing, and for those that are have followed it, can you just give us a quick synopsis of where the perpetrator is now and what happened? Kind of where Matt. I don't even want to say his name. Where he is.
you. I know. Yeah. So, let's see. It's been a long road even in the last year. He was federally charged with my kidnapping for 40-year sentence back in 2017. We then fought for state charges because we wanted to make sure if he did ever get out, he would have to register as a sex offender. And federally, there is no rape charges. It's like an added thing to the kidnapping. Anyway, so we went for state charges. He was charged for the assaults, the sexual assaults, what was that, 2021. Now that the series, and he was in federal prison. Um, Now that the series came out and law enforcement reached out to us, there's a chief of police that's like, "Look, there's unanswered questions. I'm sure you still feel a certain way. Do you think anyone in law enforcement says reached out to him, talked to him? Do you mind if I do?" I said, please do. I was trying, Mara, my husband and I were trying to figure out if we would meet him in federal prison ourselves and try to get more clear answers. But we also needed to protect ourselves. So that allowed for us to at least see what he would have to say. And in the last year of letter writing with this chief of police, he admitted to several other crimes, a few of which we knew that he was linked to, and he likely did. Um, and so in the last 6 months since January, he's been convicted to 4 additional crimes,
Mm.
2 that we didn't know of, one that happened 2 weeks after our kidnapping that went unreported. The family paid $30,000, were in fear for their life, and for the last 10 years never even reported it. But law enforcement, based on his confessions, were able to find them. And then one that he admitted to was his first one was he was 15 or 16 years old in 1993. He attacked a couple camping and attempted to rape the woman um, and got away. And so he the last of those conviction sentences, and now those are additional life sentences. So
Okay. I mean,
whatever
listen, yeah.
that means. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. Uh, I doubt that's the only things that he's done. But time will tell.
Yeah, no, I know. And so, I think that the point is that this is something, unfortunately, is going to be probably threaded in your life for the foreseeable future. And it's just, it's part of it right now. So it's kind of like you said, you have to figure out ways to be able to live alongside it and not let it define you, right? In and out, whatever. I mean, the fact that you would actually go speak with him, I mean, you actually would, I mean, consider that's brave.
For a decade, we had talked, my husband and I, would we, should we? No, we didn't want to ever do it because he's incredibly manipulative, and wants to control whatever situation.
Yeah.
So we didn't want to do it if there was any pending cases. We didn't want to do it when we were writing a book or before a docuseries came out. We didn't want him to find a way to have power over anything, any of those things. So we really didn't start to pursue it or really entertain it until the series was about to be released. And yeah, I reached out to victims assistance through the FBI, the AUSA, and everyone's basically like, I don't know, you got to figure it out on your own, which I thought there would be better support around that. I know that we aren't the only victims who would want to confront their attacker and have a
Right.
conversation with them, which is it's something called restorative justice, and it can
Right.
be healing for both parties
Right. Right.
depending
Right.
on the circumstances.
Sure.
However, like seeing the letter writing back and forth, and he had written some stuff to me through my attorney, and um he is not someone that I think will ever change. And
Right.
so I have to go, what would be the point? Um, a big piece of it is really just being able to be in the same room with someone who had my life in their hands and finally be true and authentic to how I wanted to respond. And everything in those 2 days of captivity was me trying to gauge whether or not he's going to kill me. And so having my responses all based around that and just taking that control back um, is something that I feel like my soul would want. But at the same time, you have to like balance all the things. And so,
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to pivot to something a little happier and your two
mhm.
beautiful children and how perhaps this has changed your perspective on motherhood or impacted your perspective on motherhood. And if so, how do you approach being a mom differently now? How is there anything different that you were mentioning, a little bit about your children and when you're worried about them as babies. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Anything.
I don't it's hard to tell, right? Because I wasn't a mom
Right.
before.
Right.
You had ideas of motherhood, and I don't know if I would parent necessarily any differently.
Right.
Than I would. I think there's those natural things like you're a mom and I mean you carrying your newborn down or a parent carrying your newborn down the stairs and you like have all this graphic like visuals of
I
like what
know.
can happen. So
I
you take each step a little lighter,
Right.
like even driving, like all the things, the checklist of okay, this is what I need. Um I mean, there's little things like would I have put my 5-year-old in karate or my
Yeah.
4-year-old in karate at this point in
Love
time?
it.
Probably not.
Love it.
Maybe, maybe not, but,
Maybe
like,
not.
that's a definite, like, um, yep, I think it's
Ballet before, karate now. I mean, I get it.
I
I get it. And I think that's
uh,
great.
and it's been really empowering for her little self, like, even just having a moment of, like, trying to use her voice, and they're having her practice,
That's too
"Stop,
cute,
back
right?
off," and her to use it. It's hard, like, it's really, really hard, so it's, for all the reasons, it's a great experience for her. I think, I'm diving into self-defense again,
Yes.
learning how to use a knife and weapons. I don't think I would have done that, but because I'm a parent, especially now, I want
Yeah.
just to be well equipped, I guess. Having my childhood trauma of I was molested when I was 12. Some of that comes into play of just you don't want to like view the
Well,
world in a
yeah.
negative way. You don't
No.
want to like see everyone as a potential predator. You want your child to embrace life and take risks and live and make mistakes and all the things. So it's like a delicate balance of really being aware of all the potential dangers that this world could hold, but also trying to really focus on all the positive things and lifting that up and empowering her with those things. So, equipping her, I guess, to
Empowering, and I like that. I think that's great. I think we should all, I was never having that opportunity. It was ballet, or piano or violin. It wasn't kind of saying what are things that I can do to assert my voice to feel more comfortable that way. That's not how we were raised. But
yeah.
and
I
this
do
brings us.
think
Go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. I do think
No,
it's
no,
also a cultural thing that's changed too, which is nice. So some
I
of it's
agree.
not it's like general parenting is evolved a little bit, especially
Right.
around young girls, like not forcing them to have to give everyone a hug and having that be more universal of, ask the child if they want a hug or a kiss, or it's okay for a little girl to be emotional because that's just their
Absolutely.
brain development.
Yeah.
It's okay for them to say no and use their voice or express how they feel and not be muted. So that in a way, when the culture shifts, can help support
Totally
something that
agree.
is valuable.
Totally agree. And I think what you're doing is doing a little bit of a cultural shift too for victims. So I think in that respect, you've opened the eyes to a lot of people. And so I think, it all comes with change. It takes time and,
Mhm.
things evolve. Which brings me to my last question. Looking back, I'm really always trying to leave our listeners with a few takeaways that they can implement in their life. Are there five perhaps takeaways that maybe you didn't know before the incident, lessons that maybe could help other women survive and thrive after some sort of trauma, whatever the trauma is for them? Any sort of words of wisdom, five little tips?
Five things. What's interesting about that question is in the speaking in the last year and talking about resilience and the journey of healing, and I I narrowed down a lot of it to five P's. Um, and some of it's like you kind of universal things that you already know, but I identify with it in a different way. So, just in short, a positive mindset, patience,
Patience.
being self-perceptive or self-aware, perseverance and purpose. And like we talked about already, having a positive mindset. Sometimes comes natural to people. Some people are a little bit more pessimistic, some people a little bit more optimistic. I tend to be, I want to see the good in the world and everyone. But when it comes to a traumatic event, and facing adversity, like you could be just in the depths of darkness
Right.
and you have to crawl yourself out of there to begin to find the light. And so it really does, positive mindset's not something that you just can have when you're dealing with adversity, but it's something you have to actively strive for. And so we would make deliberate efforts to just like name something positive. Like this is a beautiful sunset. This is, or like
Gratitude. Yeah.
finding moments of joy and laughter, humor. Like it's okay for us to laugh at this crazy situation that's happening, because either you laugh or you cry, no matter what, like you need to release it some way. Right. And with patience, I think it's important. One thing that we've learned is time doesn't heal all wounds, but
Nope.
meaningful time does. And that was really apparent to me. 9 months, it took 9 months for the PTSD to really take its hold. And I would get debilitating panic attacks.
Oh, they're the worst.
And you're thinking, but time is moving on. Shouldn't I be getting better? But my therapist explained to me, at first you needed to be numb so you can rebuild your life. And now you have stability and now your body feels safe enough to process this. And so just remembering that as time moves forward, healing's not a linear process. There's going to be ups and downs, and they might present itself in different ways. So trying to give yourself grace and patience with that. And like we talked about, the being self-perceptive, being self-aware, and that's like, again, approaching yourself with curiosity and not blame. And understanding your strengths and weaknesses and how that can play a part in whatever situation you're dealing with or whatever
Right.
person you're dealing with. And that might change from moment to moment, and really staying grounded in who you are and your values and your belief system. And like with perseverance, I mean, we refused to give up. We
Right.
refused to stop fighting. And that too, it doesn't mean you just keep banging your head against the wall and expect a different result. That also takes self-reflection and assessment and going, okay, what we're doing, is this working? Is it the right path? It doesn't mean you totally give up. You might fail, fail, fail. And those failures are opportunities to learn and grow and allow you to keep working towards that goal. Um,
That's where the patience comes in.
Exactly. So they're all kind of interwoven. And the big thing, purpose. One book that really helped us right after the kidnapping was A Man's Search for Meaning. A Holocaust survivor is talking about him trying to find meaning in like the worst possible situations, right? And I think that goes to the bigger picture issue. One thing that I just never could have imagined, like we are all strong enough to take on anything that life presents to us. And we each have the power to create meaning and purpose around what we've gone through. Like, I honestly don't believe everything happens for a reason. I think things can happen and they can be awful, but we have the power within ourselves to create something positive from that.
Well, and I think on that note, you certainly have. 10 years ago today, I'm sure you were not ever imagining where you would be, where you are, which is a great thing. We are just so happy for you. I totally appreciate you coming on the show and kind of giving us a little bit of direction to help others. That's what it's all about. I appreciate you sharing your journey, and I wish you an abundance of wonderful things: happiness, joy, love, peace, and all of that. Thank you so much, Denise Quinn.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
If you want to learn more about our guest, check out the show notes. And please take a moment to write a positive review about the show on Apple or Spotify, because this is the best way for bold women to find this show. To write a positive review, scroll down to the bottom of the podcast and click where it says write a review. In return, you get good karma and a shout out on a future episode. Until next time, my friends, keep pushing through that fear and making your future yours. You've got this.